scared.
These videos are satiric reviews. You don't have to agree, but don't bitch about it.
I hate this channel.
Hey there, I'm Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso, and during the Monday Night Wars, wrestling was real. Or at least for those that worked in the world's two biggest promotions at the time, the WWF and the WCW, and to a lesser extent, ECW. It was common knowledge and accepted fact that when a former ECW or WCW wrestler would show up in a WWF ring, they usually weren't treated all that well. A lot of the time they'd spend their time in the company laying down and looking up at the lights. And that's assuming they didn't get their lights knocked out. Public Enemy, anybody? I mean, more often than not, these guys were buried. And who knows more about burying people than an Undertaker? You see, Undertaker disliked the competition just as much, if not more, than anybody else for a combination of reasons. First off, Taker worked for WCW as Mean Mark Callis, and it was there that he was told he never really amount to much, which obviously rubbed the man from the dark side the wrong way. Secondly, he was one of the most loyal workers to the WWF, and being the locker room leader that he was, he took the ratings losses and attacks on his brand personally. So when these men were brought to the company before, during, and after the buyouts of their own companies, well, a lot of them were pretty much just fed to the dead man. In April of 2001, Taker completely annihilated and dismantled the former ECW alumni, Steven Richards-led stable, The Right to Censor, as he somehow managed to manhandle the entire team in a 4-on-1 affair. And as one internet person would say, man, it was miserable. Just miserable. Miserable. The beatdown was so bad it managed to actually successfully split the group apart, as the team got tired of jobbing out and just let Taker have his way with Richards. Just left him there to die. Eventually, Richards would return to seek his revenge by employing the WCW team of Chronic to go up against the Dead Man and his brother Kane. Their time in the company was short, to say the least. And actually, somehow, that's also me saying the most. They were almost hired exclusively to job out to the much more successful Brothers of Destruction. Though the match they'd put on pay-per-view was a sad excuse of a match, and probably legally I can't even call it that. And it probably played a big factor as to why that was the last we'd ever seen of the two big men in the company, though I think an argument could be made that they might have been a little bit sabotaged. Look, I'm not throwing shade at Undertaker or Kane, obviously they've given me plenty of moments that I look back on fondness as a wrestling fan, but it's just that there's certain moments in this match where it appears that the team is kind of being set up and possibly intentionally sandbagging the offense. Though that's just one theory. I'm not a conspiracy theorist here. I'm just saying let the video speak for itself. Actually, you know what? Strike that, never mind. They just sucked. Taker also began a feud with everyone's favorite stoner next to Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, though that remains unconfirmed, Rob Van Dam. Taker demanded the youngsters' respect in a classic case of art imitating real life. The former Deadman beat down the fan favorite RVD time and time again, both in contested matches and just plain old build-up brawls. And while they had decent matches together when The Undertaker just really wasn't having decent matches with anybody else, Rob was on the losing side of things all throughout, served as little more than playing ragdoll to the WWF veteran. RVD had little to gain with this feud, but The Undertaker managed to gain a hardcore title reign, which, despite being a minor title held by a major superstar, it didn't really mean all that much. But now for the most appalling example of Taker's reign of power was the tragic tale of Diamond Dallas Page. DDP, a former world champion and one of the most beloved figures in WCW history, was brought into the company and immediately catapulted into a feud with one of its top stars in The Undertaker. Unfortunately, this debut would also be the point of no return. He was brought in to stalk Undertaker's wife in an effort to get inside the head of the American Badass, until he eventually actually became obsessed with his wife and just started stalking her to stalk her. You know, that's good, though. It's good. You know what? I commend you, you know? You know, it's like these YouTubers. They're out here, they're putting videos on YouTube trying to make money, and then there's some YouTubers who do what they do because they have a passion for it. And DDP, I'm finally glad that you accidentally stumbled on something you had passion for, but maybe you could try to put that energy into not stalking women. Like there's other hobbies, is all I'm trying to say. Maybe take up bird watching, knitting, I don't fucking know. Have you ever tried yoga? Well, anyway, The Undertaker took exception to this for obvious reasons. And when it finally came time for these two to meet in ring, Taker was not only continually victorious, but he also beat the holy shit out of DDP all throughout the feud. As a matter of fact, in their first outing, I don't believe that it was actually a match. It was considered a unsanctioned street fight in a wrestling ring, because that makes sense. I'm pretty sure DDP didn't get one bit of offense in. If I were to call these glorified squash matches, I'd be lying to you, because there was nothing glorified about them whatsoever. These were just straight up squash matches. If wrestling was Mortal Kombat, every one of their matches would have ended in a flawless victory, followed by a fatality. Eventually, DDP's best friend Kanyon would get involved in the mix, and Undertaker's brother Kane would even the odds. Undertaker and Kane would put the boots to DDP and Champagne Chris Kanyon, winning the WCW tag team titles off them. Not only was DDP subjected to being Undertaker's bitch, but to my knowledge, DDP never got so much as one win over the dead man. Hell, even the Undertaker's wife, Sarah, who, I would like to remind you, was not a wrestler, was just his wife, got a pinfall victory over Paige. Now that right there, that's how you make a superstar. Well done, guys. Pat yourselves on the back. You've done it again.
Who better than Canyon?
Oh, look out! And there, on the balance and left, that's Canyon. One who might not see Undertaker. And a Canyon. Welcome back to. Oh, again, oh man, oh man!
Even 3 years after the initial invasion storyline had finished, Taker was putting his former company rivals 6 feet under. No longer the American badass, Taker now reigned over SmackDown with his dead man gimmick once again. In 2004, Booker T and the Dudley Boys entered the blue brand. To their internal regret, Taker quickly disposed of Booker T in a feud which saw the heel get no real heat, become Taker's personal punching bag for a brief time being, and oh yeah, go and visit a witch doctor, which somehow makes his feud against Triple H look like Hogan versus Andre. I mean, seriously, this was everything his feud with DDP was. You know, just minus the stalking and instead with a little bit more voodoo. Of course, the natural progression of things. It was a strange choice, which is why I think it's mostly forgotten. So, really, I'm just kind of sorry for bringing it up. Console your therapists. Later that same year, not too long after, as a matter of fact, The Undertaker would take on and defeat Paul Heyman's new old henchmen, the Dudley Boys, defeating the multiple-time tag team champions with relative ease, completely manhandling 2 of the tag division's top stars, making them look like complete chumps in the main event of a pay-per-view that no one paid to view. And let us not forget the time that he literally murdered poor little Spike Dudley.
Yes. No! Nice choke! Oh my God! That's it! The day's over! The day's over! He's dead! Let's get out of here!
That happened. And all of this isn't even taking into account the backstage burials suffered at the hands of the dead man, who allegedly down-talked Mike Awesome to the higher-ups in the company, leading to him losing credibility and falling toward the bottom of the card before he eventually just fizzled out. And that man's WWE career faded quicker than if Thanos would have snapped his fingers on him. And that's also not me talking about the time that he tried to have Chris Jericho reprimanded for insulting him during a promo. A promo, which, by the way, sucked. Hard.
Man, that Undertaker, always putting over up-and-coming talent. What a guy. What a guy. Of course I'm joking. Taker's one of the most respected veterans in all of wrestling history and blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, come on. To me, this period of time was The Undertaker's real streak. The streak of wins where he just said, you know what, just give me that guy. I'll demolish him, we'll call it a week. It's like when WCW ended and when it was purchased by WWF, like, Taker just started looking through a catalog of WCW guys and said, all right, I'll take him, and then I'll destroy them all. Now, I'm sure that I've forgotten a name or two. I'm sure that I have.
I know what I'm saying is basically blasphemy here, as saying anything negative about the Phenom is frowned upon in high society, but I'm not accusing him of anything. Do I think he may have played a part in some of the downfall of these men's runs in the company? Yeah, maybe some. DDP. But I'm sure a lot of this is actually coincidental. It was just something I noticed that I didn't hear get brought up all that much. No offense to the dead man, no offense to the creatures of the night, please don't torch my house. To Taker's credit, he's not alone in the burial of his former competition. I think we all know of at least one man, but did much worse. A man who one day we'll cover on this channel. But until then, thanks for watching.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. You're watching the Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso's channel, dude. So if you like the words that came out of his mouth hole, and you too want to become a V-tard, don't forget to like and subscribe, and click that little bell icon to get updates and notifications. Ooh, tell him what up, Mach. Ooh, yeah. Follow the man on Twitter, yeah, because we all know it's not stalking if it's on the internet, yeah. Join the madness by joining the Discord, and if you have a moment of time and a free $1 to spare, head over to the SIJW's Patreon, dig it, where you can request videos, get exclusive videos, and early access to content, yeah. Or go down to PayPal, where you can buy the shirts, brother. But most importantly, just remember, if you're not tuning in, then you're missing out.